Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Lieutenant Colonel Heidi Jurgis, and my colleague is Miss Daphne McGill. We are going to go ahead and do our tech talk for this NPS final course on interoperability of MedSim. So a little bit about both of our offices and how we have parallel lines of effort, but we also intersect, is I currently am working for the Director of Simulation. We represent the MEDCO Medical Center of Excellence Commanding General as the lead agency for the development and execution of Army MedSim policy and strategy in support of training for the warfighter. So our main goal is that we provide current and next generation MedSim training and testing to do our very best to eliminate preventable deaths on the battlefield through monitoring threat capabilities, researching advanced technology, developing and implementing pre-programmed product improvement to maintain resiliency against current and emerging threats. That's a mouthful, I know. So Ms. Daphne McGill she's with DMSO, so the Defense Medical Modeling and Simulation Office, and they are the lead organization for the centralized management of shared service medical modeling and simulation, MM&S capabilities, and solutions to support medical education and training. They focus more on the MTF type training, but in a joint environment, and we focus more on the operational environment and the warfighter. So again, we have parallel efforts, but we've been working together for about 2 years. Myself, I'm currently the liaison officer for the Director of Simulation with MEDCO to the J7 DMSO office. So we're on a lot of the same calls. We see a lot of the same technology coming out, and again, parallel efforts, but they intersect more frequently than not. A few objectives for this tech talk about interoperability is we're going to define it. We're going to go over issues encountered without it, healthcare simulation requirements with interoperability, and then current efforts. Interoperability of MedSim devices. So there's two main types, syntactic and semantic. But before we get into that, one major issue that has been brought up, and really for the last couple decades by military medical trainers, is that the problem is, especially when it comes to interoperability, that there are proprietary concerns that really prevent vendors and or product developers from collaborating to build platforms that are basically multifunctional for training. And we have such a diverse requirement for training because we have everything from the warfighter and the combat lifesaver courses that are needed, non-medical soldiers, all the way through GME for physicians, and everything that entails, not just GME, but again, even the continuity of care and training for the surgeons, for example. So we have such a wide variety of training requirements within the DoD that it's really hard when interoperability there isn't a platform for it. So just wanted to put it out there that it is, it's been a problem for the last couple decades to a lot of the senior leaders within Army medicine and DoD wide. But I mean, currently the environment's changing. So we have, for example, this is not a plug-in for the UW Crest Lab, but we have the University of Washington, and also University of Minnesota, that has a lab, and they've been working with JPC1, formerly now JPC6, on creating modular simulation trainers. And for, again, just example, there's the MOSES system, Modular Healthcare Simulation Education System, which again is a modular MedSim training device that will work across multiple platforms and provide the interoperability that the DoD is really looking for. So again, just an example. Also within the Army, right now, the current efforts are going and moving towards a synthetic training environment for the future operational warfighter. And STI is a platform that, again, will include interoperable systems for tracking and assessing combat operations, unit movements, and at the end of the day, patient flow. So we're getting there slowly but surely, but again, it's been addressed for years, and we'll see when the STI STEE will finally get all put together and start working, but within my office, it's one of the current initiatives and lines of effort is injecting the medical piece into the STEE environment. So again, just some food for thought.
Greetings, this is Daphne McGill, and I'll be going over some issues associated with interoperability encountered by our end users, leadership, and stakeholders. Of course, having interoperability between sites and their simulation technology would allow for sharing of information, curriculum, multimedia, scenarios, including program scenario files for multiple mannequin platforms. You could also share expertise, for instance, having an evaluator from another site review and rate a recorded training event, either synchronously or asynchronously. Having interoperability could be a force multiplier, allowing sharing of expertise, lessons learned, best practices, instead of working in silos as it is currently. There are many simulation technologies that require updates, either to software, firmware, operating systems, security patches, etc. As standalone systems, they cannot be connected to the government network to download the necessary files to make these updates. While some, very few sites have acquired non-network Wi-Fi connections, the majority of sites do not have this type of access. These sites are left with workarounds, including taking the equipment home or downloading the files outside the government network to load or install onto the simulation equipment computer. This practice can be worrisome and can have some security issues, especially with contract FTE personnel taking equipment home. The sites that have worked out Wi-Fi connection or process for updates have built a relationship with their site's POCs, but many sites are bounced between the IT systems and medical logistics offices because they cannot decide on who owns support of the simulation equipment. The IT office sees any kind of computer or laptop, even if it's associated with the simulation technology, and tries to re-image it with the standard desktop configuration. Unfortunately, this removes the vendor software, making it not work as it was intended, and any attempt to load the vendor software back is blocked by the administrator because it is not approved. Also, re-imaging the computer can cause issues with the warranty. In the past, when IT has re-imaged computers, it has to be sent back to the vendor to be re-imaged and the simulator software reinstalled. To make sure this does not happen, it is important to engage and build a relationship with your IT office prior to acquisition, after acquisition, and anytime there's a changeover of personnel within the IT office. In the medical logistics office, they may or may not see simulation technology as something they support. It seems to be different from site to site, even within the same service. The question is simulation equipment a medical device? If so, the biomedical equipment technicians, or BMETs, would support it. There is currently discussion with DHA's DEMSO office and the DHA's J6 in medical logistics to determine the definitive answer. Is simulation training equipment considered a medical device? There's more to come on this as we continue our search and discussion with these offices. There have also been efforts within the Air Force to add to the BMET curriculum in their initial and sustainment training. This would include the maintenance and support of simulation equipment, mainly so far mannequins, and this process is still being worked out and depends greatly on what equipment is at each site where the BMETs are located. Most of our simulation programs do not have someone on the staff that understands the IT and network issues that simulation technologies have. But simulation programs or centers have added information technologist positions to their manning. This role would help with the IT office relationship building and assist troubleshooting equipment issues. They can help by recommending equipment that can be supported by the site technical offices and the facility's infrastructure. The equipment they support can include audio-video capture systems, data capture and assessment systems, streaming services, projection and presentation systems, mobile devices, Wi-Fi connections, and connection issues between the mannequins and instructional workstations. Of course, not every site can afford this role, but it has helped for some of our larger simulation centers. Without interoperability or the ability to connect online, the vendor customer support options are limited. If connected, the vendor would be able to access the technology remotely to apply updates and patches, and also help diagnose or fix any issues. Without online connection, support consists of walking through the issue over the phone to try to find the cause, sending the technology back to the vendor to try to fix, or having the vendor send someone out to fix it. It all depends on what service agreement is in the warranty and if it will cost money to fix the issue. Another issue we have seen lately is rejected acquisition request because a site will not approve standalone systems. Even if it is to update a part of the currently owned technology, they will not approve it, leaving the technology unusable to support training at the site. In the past, it was accepted that there was standalone equipment used for training purposes only. But since the migration to DHA's MedCOI, there has been increased pushes to require all technology have authority to operate on the MedCOI. While there are a handful of vendors working on ATO status, the majority of simulation technology companies do not see the need to, nor want to expend the funds to acquire ATO for their equipment. So what are the requirements for healthcare simulation network access or interoperability? We'll talk about the medical community of interest, or the MedCOI, and it is the DHA's global network and security architecture. And the sites that migrated to DHA also migrated to this MedCOI network. It is a single, secure, interoperable network enclave for joint DoD medical community communications and information technology operations. It takes all the services NIPR medical networks and consolidates them under the DHA network. In discussion with our POC at DHA J6, Mr. Greg Knutson, to be able to run diagnostics on a system to achieve ATO status, you need to have the system to be able to test it in a secure test environment. But you can't acquire it because it does not have an ATO. This is the classic catch-22. So we continue our discussions between DIMSO, our J6 partners, and medical logistics within DHA to search for the definitive answer if standalone systems are allowed, especially if they are for training only. So more to come on this. Efforts are underway to help a handful of companies as they go through the ATO process, specifically cloud-based learning management systems with video recording systems. This is EMS Simulation IQ and Interact Solutions. For these learning management systems to be hosted, you can purchase the system along with the administration and upkeep of the system by the company, or you can purchase it but provide the administration and upkeep internally. Both ways have strengths and weaknesses. For the company to do it all, there's a ready customer support that makes all of the updates and patches and help you troubleshoot any issues and setup. But it does cost a little bit more, and there is a feeling of loss of control or ownership of the data that's within that. If you own it all, you own the data, you have control over it all, but you do have to have the resources, staffing, and manning to administer and upkeep the systems and any updates, patches, or troubleshooting within there. I'm sure there's other strengths and weaknesses, but this is the basics of cloud-based systems acquisition. As I stated before, this is just a handful of vendors that we're working on ATO status and helping them from the DIMSO office. The majority of simulation technology companies do not see the need to nor want to expend the funds to acquire ATOs for their equipment, especially if it's not a requirement. Even if the DHA requires ATO status and we do not buy their equipment, most of the vendors will focus on their sales and industry, since the military is just a small part of their income. In summary, we talked about interoperability. We defined what it is, walked you through many issues that we face without interoperability in the healthcare simulation, what the requirements are or lack of requirements that we're finding, and current efforts. The last slide shows references we pulled from and would love to hear your feedback or input on this subject. You can email the DIMSO organizational box.